Coming up on Tech Talk, I'm going to do step-by-step on how to build a PC. It's coming up right now. First thing you have to figure out is what kind of processor you're going to use. The processor is the main CPU, central processing unit, is the main brains of the unit. It does all the heavy lifting, it does all the math, and I chose to go with the AMD 3200G. And I also went with this particular processor because it has onboard graphics. In other words, if you use a motherboard that has the ports for graphics and will support it, then the CPU has the graphics built right into it. You don't have to get a separate graphics card if you don't want. Now, how do you pick your CPU? It's what are you going to do with the computer? If you're going to use it for just regular everyday tasks, you probably don't need more than a 4-core processor. If you're going to do Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, real complicated software, CAD, then you want to use a more of a multi-core processor, a 6 or an 8-core. Now this particular build is for a family member. He'll be using it some for work, but mainly for just home. So that's why I went with the 4-core, 4-threaded AMD 3200G with the onboard graphics. Next, motherboards. Now I picked this motherboard because it was very reliable. Gigabyte's a very good company. I've built many systems with it, and it's not a gaming board, even though you could game with it, but it has expandability. I put 16 gigabytes of RAM in this machine, but it has 2 extra slots open. We can always increase or double the RAM if we need to. And it has the slots, PCI slots, to put in graphic cards if we want to do that later too. That's the whole thing about motherboards, the expandability. If you're just building a system, you're not going to be really doing much changing in it, then you don't have to go with a high-end motherboard. I think this was about $75. I mean, you can spend $200-300 on a board, and there's many videos of how to put a gaming system together, so this has got nothing to do with that. I built many gaming systems mainly for myself, but this is just an all-around good board, and this is why I use that board. RAM, nowadays I would say you'd need to go to at least 8 gigabytes, but ideally 16 gigabytes of RAM is ideal. With Windows 10, it uses quite a bit of RAM, so you always want a little bit extra headroom. And if you're not, like I said, if you're not doing a massive amount of tasks, then 16 gigs should do it. You got to think of RAM as like if you have a desk and you needed to put more files on the desk, more applications, you would need a bigger desk. That's what RAM's function is. So the more RAM you have, the more applications you can have open. In other words, you can have a browser with 20 windows open in it, 30 windows open in it. Now you double the RAM, now double that number, and that's what you do with RAM. But my recommendation, if you're going to build a system nowadays in 2020, go with a minimum amount of 16 gigabytes. Hard drives, you always want to do, I already put it in the system, always want to go with an SSD, a solid state drive, much faster than mechanical drive. Now I did put a mechanical drive in there for extra storage, but for your main operating system and applications, you want an SSD. Way faster, more reliable than a mechanical drive. That's why you want to go with an SSD. Okay, first thing we do is install the processor, the CPU, into the motherboard. So let's get started with this build. We'll start with the motherboard. I like to put the motherboard right on top of the motherboard box to insert the CPU to get started before I put the CPU, the processor, into the motherboard before it goes into the case. Keep in mind, AMD CPUs have those pins. You don't want to bend them. Look for the diamond on the board, match the diamond on the CPU itself. It goes right in, no force needed. Then take that little arm and just pull it down. It snaps right into place and you're all set. So this was my first AMD build in years. So I'm going with the stock cooler because that's all I need. But when I went to put it on, I didn't realize that you have to remove these plates here before you install the cooler. So I'm going to install the cooler outside of the case, and then I'm going to put the board in with the cooler already installed on the CPU. So I just got to remove these screws right here. So once I removed those plates, you just have to match up the holes on the cooler with the holes on the back plate of the motherboard. Once you have that good and tight, you might as well go ahead and plug your CPU fan in. You want to make sure that the holes lined up right. And that's it. Ready to go into the... First thing you want to put is the back plate. There it is, all snapped in fine. Now that I have installed the CPU and the fan, now we'll place it into the case. Now you want to mount your motherboard to the standoffs. Standoffs are what mount your motherboard to the case. There's usually 6 or 8 of them. So you want to just make sure you get them in there good, but not over tighten. And you line up the ports on the back of the machine to your I/O shield. Okay, once you have your board secured into your case, screwed in, make sure all your boards are lined up fine. Everything's in there solidly. Then the next thing you want to do is install your RAM. Most of these systems now are dual channel, so this board has 4 memory slots, so you want to match them. It tells me that the gray slots on this is 1 and 2, and the black ones would be 3 and 4, so that's where I'm going to install it. Get a nice snap when it goes in. That's it, RAM's in. I usually take all my wiring out to get it ready to wire it to the motherboard. It's probably one of the most tedious things that you can do, because you're putting these little plugs on these little connectors right there. Every motherboard's different, so you have to go by your manual to wire all these. Then you have your USB 3, which is the big connection, the big blue connection. That's an easy one. This is the front USB headers, and as you can see, there's one slot that isn't. So you want to coordinate that to the one on the board that isn't. Okay, and then one last one. This, I believe, is audio. Yep, HD audio. And it goes right over here. Same thing. There's a cutout. And there's a missing one on the back board there. So it's one. Okay, now we can install the hard drives. So I'm going to be putting 2 hard drives in this machine. This is a 1.5 terabyte mechanical drive, but Windows 10 and all the applications are going to run on the much faster SSD drive, solid state drive. Whenever possible, you want to use an SSD as your main drive. So I mounted my SSD to the back. I had a back panel for that. Got my wiring ready. Got my regular hard drive storage all connected. You just have to pass these through and connect them to the motherboard. Right there is where you put your SATA cables. And let's get this thing going. Okay, so audio's in, all the USB's in, all this wiring is in, the motherboard, the power LED, all those are in. I don't worry about messing with the wire management until I make sure all my wiring is right. So now the next thing is to attach the power supply. And then we'll see if we got a bootable system. Power supply just has 4 little screws, you screw that in. Easy enough. But you get the power supply in. I'm going to put the main power supply into the board. This is a 24-pin board, so you got to put them all in. And then you want to hit your this thing right here that says CPU. CPU power that goes in right over here. Get Windows to load on here so I know everything is working okay. I'm not going to do the final install though of all the drivers and software. So I'm going to do a little cable management, tighten up those with some twist ties. Two main CPU, the motherboard and the CPU ones. Okay, if you've stuck around this long, you probably want to know what did this thing cost to build. But before I get to that, let me explain why you should build a PC over buying one. You might be able to buy one maybe a little bit cheaper, $100, maybe $50 cheaper, and from HP or Lavono or one of the big companies, and you might be happy with that. But the reason you build a PC is for the expandability. On this particular PC, I can add more RAM, I could add a video card, I could put a bigger processor or a more powerful processor in if I want. I could add more hard drives. I could do a lot of things. In other words, this has got total expandability. It could probably last 8 to 10 years without any problem. Where if you buy a PC, not only is it harder to upgrade, I mean there are a few upgrades you can do if you buy one. They are a little bit more difficult. And the other thing is that everything's proprietary. And if you say buy an HP, even when you open your browser up, it goes out to the HP sites, even though you could change the default window, all that stuff stays in there. What it does is when you open up a browser to go anywhere, it starts to look for all the HP stuff so it can give you all their ads with all their associated stuff. It just starts slowing down your PC. One of the biggest reasons why I'd rather build a PC than to buy one. Expandability and not all the proprietary stuff. Here's what I did and here's how I priced this out. I have not built a PC from scratch since 2017 when I built my gamer. And I used to buy a lot of items from Newegg, but then I went back through my history and found out I bought most of my components at Amazon. And if you have Prime, you have free shipping on almost everything. And I was lucky enough to price everything out and save $89.20. I matched part for part with Newegg, and they were $89 more. And the crazy thing, some of it was shipping, even though you pay some taxes at Amazon, but two components, the RAM and the power supply, were double the price on Newegg. So if you're going to buy some components and you do have a Prime account, even if you don't, I'd still check Amazon against Newegg. So here's the breakdown of the final price. This build was $603.09. I also showed you what it would be if you wanted to put an optional second hard drive in, another $50. All in all, I think this is a pretty powerful PC for $600. And like I said before, it's upgradable. It should last a pretty long time. And that's also, if you see included, is a legal license, full price, $199 for Windows 10 Pro. Beware if you see it cheaper, because I've heard people get ripped off at some of those sites for like half price of it. So just beware of that. Well, that wraps this video up. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them below. I'd be happy to answer anything for you. And if you're going to build one, good luck. And I'll talk to you in the next one.